are these people?
Anita Wood, thank you. A new monthly subscriber to INN newsletter. So all these people already have contributed and supported. The ways that you can do that if you're not already on that board, and we appreciate everyone that is and continue to be on that board and continue to support. Cash App, $ Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network. And then we've got the Substacks, INNnewsletter.com, IndieMediaToday.com, and our self-hosted website that has a Stripe plugin at IndieNewsNow.com. And then you go to the Keep the Media Free, and you can hook up a monthly or one-time contribution over there. Hey, we also have got the British that are prosecuting their journalists and activists for speaking out and trying to change the narrative and change public opinion and get their lawmakers to go along with that public opinion about funding genocide and it being a war crime, and maybe even bringing up Keir Starmer on charges, which I'd love to see. Okay. But again, we go to our friend Laura at Normal Island News. Breaking, the British government has explained that terrorism now just means anything Israel doesn't like. Well, we've known that. And what do we mean? Well, I brought Ricky from Council of State Media. Laura and Ricky are all Indie Media Award honorees. We're only going to the best of the best tonight for this stuff. Splashing paint on a plane is terrorism, and killing 20,000 plus children is self-defense. Welcome to the upside-down world that we now live in. Ricky writes that if you support the efforts of Palestine Action to stop the Gaza genocide, you may as well say it now, because pretty soon those words are going to land you up to 14 years in prison. Just writing this article will probably get me put on a government watch list. He already is one. If I'm not somehow already on one, he's definitely on one for the wheelchair story alone about the NHS. Isn't it nice?
Right away.
Isn't it nice living in one of those Western democracies that have all the freedom? So much freedom. It seems Yvette Cooper has received her orders from Netanyahu because she's about to abuse her powers as Home Secretary in order to proscribe Palestine action. The Home Secretary has always just been a monstrous position. Back to the time that that Julian Assange has been in prison, and we had Priti Patel there. She was a mess too. This means that the group would officially be considered a terrorist organization, Palestine Action, right? And it would be illegal to not only be a member, but to express support for it. Yes, thought crime is a thing in the UK. Palestine Action upset the government when they broke into RAF Bryce Norton and splashed paint on 2 planes that the government insists have nothing to do with the conflict, only that's not true. One of these planes has the tail number ZZ338, and we know it was used to support airstrikes on Yemen in defense of Israel. We've got the flight logs.
Yep.
What is particularly galling here is that Sir Keir Starmer once defended someone who did what Palestine Action did. Of course he did, which is break into an RAF base to vandalize a plane. His change of position shows...
Pause.
Yes.
Exactly?
Like exactly.
Like this exactly the same? What the fuck?
Stop! You violated the law.
Right?
What the fuck?
Yeah. Oh, QC Lewis and, yep, was the appellant. The judgment, handed down the judgment of Smith Burnell Reporting Limited. So, what this is from 2000... Case 2004. Yep. July 21st, 2004. Apparently, somebody broke into a base and did something to a plane. And here we go. At about 9:45 p.m. that day, the defendants were discovered together by a senior U.S. Air Force airman in the secure fuel installation complex inside the perimeter fence of RAF Fairford, which was at the time a 24-hour operational military base and NATO standby base, as well as being home to allied U.S. visiting forces. They were in possession of tools which had enabled them to enter the airbase, and which they had intended to cause damage to equipment to the airbase. By the time they were apprehended, they had damaged 3 refueling trucks, 2 munitions trailers, and their tractor units. They didn't just spray paint on it. When arrested, they both stated that it was their intention to prevent the US and UK from using the base for what they described as a launching pad for war crimes. Oh, sounds familiar. Soon, we won't be allowed to do something the Prime Minister once argued was perfectly legal and morally justified. That's the reality we're facing. There's even talk of the government proscribing the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. This would then mean that it would be illegal to support direct action to stop genocide, and it would also be illegal to support Iran's right to self-defense. If you're not British and you wonder why the British never expressed support for resistance groups, it's because they would go to jail. Counterterrorism legislation would leave them with far fewer rights than a regular criminal, and they would not be given anything like due process. Their imprisonment would be a formality. Often, suspects are denied access to a lawyer or even access to electronic devices and put on house arrest until they go to court under a media blackout. Like Sarah Wilkinson, they tried to do that too.
Right to jail, right away.
If you were jailed for supporting Palestine action, the media wouldn't probably even mention your name. You would simply vanish until the government decided you could be released from room 101. Anyone who spoke up would have to be careful because the wrong words could land them in the same position. Chilling isn't the word. This is dystopian,
will not be televised.
Dystopian, authoritarian. God, how many words can we use to describe this? Whenever the government introduces a draconian measure for Israel,
25.
Sure. Whenever the government
25 words
introduces a draconian measure on behalf of Israel, the argument goes something like supporting Palestinians is not illegal, but violence is. Then the police prosecute people who are not violent. So, not only are you not allowed to take meaningful action to stop Israel's genocide, you're not even allowed to express your disapproval. If the government has not found a way to silence you, it's always looking at new ways. The government was even shutting down peaceful protests until the courts ruled that was unlawful, and it's now considering changing the law to get around this. If your basic freedoms are inconvenient to Israel, your basic freedoms have to go. It's no coincidence that they're going after those who advocate for Palestine. You will never see counterterrorism legislation used against a supporter of Israel. If they say something supportive of genocide, well, that's just free speech. If they damage property, that's just petty vandalism. When a supporter of Palestine does the same, it's terrorism.
Sure.
Israel has committed the 2 biggest crimes under international law, genocide and a war of aggression, as well as collective punishment.
That's just the first 2.
Right. Both of these crimes are more serious than terrorism, yet the government is pretending opposition to these crimes is terrorism. It's punishing people for doing the right thing. That sounds familiar because they're doing the same thing here.
Terrorism, terrorist, terror.
Police, freeze!
The Genocide Convention does not just put the onus on governments to act to prevent genocide, but on individuals. Palestine Action and others are acting in accordance with international law when they try to prevent genocide. Some would argue that there's no such thing as international law. Our government, on the other hand, is seriously in breach of international law. Again, if there were such a thing. There are treaties between countries, but there is no universally accepted law that all countries abide by. There's treaties, there's doctrines or whatever you call it, but it's not law because it hasn't been passed by every single one of their Congress or, their bodies of law. It's only kind of like a suggested thing, that when we do something at the UN. That's not like binding as a law of the land. David Lammy is blackmailing Iran by threatening that the U.S. will illegally bomb its nuclear sites. Too late. He's threatening further war crimes if the victim of an illegal war of aggression does not surrender. While the government is calling the likes of Palestine Action terrorists, this is the real terrorism. It's literally mafia thug terrorism. Terrorism, again, is the use of terror and violence to coerce people. Bombing nuclear sites in Iran certainly would fall under that jurisdiction, under that definition. Setting off bombing pagers in Lebanon definitely would fall under that definition. No one in the UK is feeling terrorized by Palestine Action. No one is remotely afraid of what Palestine Action is doing might kill them, because it's not terrorism by any objective measure. Maybe one day Ricky will go to jail for making these points, and I sincerely hope not. Alternatively, he might be conscripted to fight in a war that Israel started. Those are the prospects on offer in our so-called freedom-loving democracy. Are you not sick of Israel's shit yet? Man, I sure am. And shout out again to Ricky and Council Estate Media. That's councilestatemedia.uk is the URL for that. They're also on Twitter and on Blue Cry. They seem to think that, being off of Elon's platform is beneficial, even though it gives you nearly tiny percentage of the visibility. All right. But I support Palestine Action. All right. Michael Lynch says we're being ruled by the criminally insane. Good old Hitler had nothing on these ghouls, and hard to argue with, honestly. But we don't need to make comparisons. I mean, they are murderers, period. Mass murderers who are continuing to send spy flights and munitions and fuel tankers to support the murder of children every day. 100 Palestinians murdered a day is what the Knesset wants to be able to have happen, and the world not even think about it. No, sorry, that's not going to happen here. We're going to think about it. We're going to talk about it. And we're going to remind people that Israel and the U.S. and UK are systematically murdering Palestinian babies every day. Unarmed, defenseless Palestinian babies living in tents, trying to survive, who are also being starved for 105 or 106 days, however many days that is now. So fuck Israel for all that. And fuck Israel for controlling the narrative in the UK, forcing the UK to put an organization like Palestine Action on a terror watch list? Because you know that if that were any other organization that wasn't on behalf of Israel, they wouldn't be talking about putting them on a terrorist list. They just wouldn't. This is done by Israel and orchestrated by Israel, because they have to control the narrative 100% across the board all the time. Because the minute that they don't, people start asking questions and pointing out the monstrous shit that they do, and it's a problem for them. So again, fuck Israel, fuck the UK, fuck Keir Starmer, authoritarian Nazi piece of shit, and I have no problem calling him one. All right, that's wow. Shout out again to Ricky. Go support Council State Media. Support independent media.
Wow.
Yeah. We'll probably, again, not be remonetized by YouTube for pulling that stunt. So if you're able to, please help us out. Cash App, $, Indie News Network. co-fi.com/Indie News Network. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. And at IndieNewsNow.com. Yeah, money. That right. That Pink Floyd. Shout out to Roger Waters, who is principled and stands up for Palestine every chance he gets. Also, INNnewsletter.com, IndieMediaToday.com over on Substack. We're live at IndieMediaToday.com now, IndieNewsNow.com, INNnewsletter.com, IndieMediaToday.com. So many places you can go in order to support independent media, because we need it more than ever. Again, I love you all, and see you soon. I don't know when, but we'll see you soon. See you, everyone.
Bye. Have a great time.
Bye-bye!
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want?